What if the perfect couple, the glamorous, rich, impossibly charming people at the center of every party, were actually living inside a slow-motion tragedy? In Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald, that's exactly what we see. On the surface, Dick and Nicole Diver are the golden king and queen of the French Riviera. But underneath the champagne and sunlight, there's mental illness, ethical betrayal, addiction, and a long, painful collapse. In this video, we'll walk through the full story of Tender is the Night, break down the main characters and key scenes, and explore why this book still hits so hard today. If you enjoy deep dives into classic literature, hit like and subscribe, and let's head to the Riviera. Tender is the Night was published in 1934, almost a decade after The Great Gatsby. By this time, Fitzgerald's own life was already in decline. His wife Zelda was struggling with mental illness. His finances were a mess, and his golden boy image was fading. You can feel all of that in this book. It's more fragmented, more painful, and far more openly about mental illness, marriage, and decline than Gatsby. Our main character is Dick Diver, an American psychiatrist who seems to have everything: intelligence, charm, a beautiful wife, and access to a wealthy world of American expatriates in Europe. His wife, Nicole Diver, appears to be the perfect partner: rich, elegant, and deeply devoted to him. Together, they host parties on the French Riviera, drawing in a loose community of rich Americans and Europeans who spend their lives traveling, drinking, and avoiding responsibility. And at the very beginning of the novel, we don't see the story through Dick's eyes. We see it through someone watching them from the outside. Our entry into the story is Rosemary Hoyt, a young American film star. She arrives on the Riviera with her mother, exhausted and looking for rest after success in Hollywood. On the beach, she notices a small, self-contained group of people who seem to glow with importance: Dick and Nicole Diver and their friends. They're confident without being loud, generous without seeming needy. Everyone else fades a little next to them. Rosemary is instantly fascinated. She's used to being the center of attention, but here she's on the outside, looking in. Over the next few days, she's drawn into the Diver's orbit. Dick is charming, attentive, and just a bit teasing. Nicole is warm and gracious, but there's something distant and breakable in her manner, as if she's performing stability. Rosemary falls in love with Dick very quickly. She mistakes his kindness, his flirtation, and his emotional availability for something meant only for her, when really, Dick has made a habit of being emotionally available to everyone. Around them, there's a small cast of friends and satellites. Abe North, a talented musician sliding into alcoholism and chaos. Mary North, his anxious, loyal wife. A shifting crowd of wealthy travelers, gossips, and drifters. We get early hints that things aren't as perfect as they look. Nicole has sudden mood swings. There are tense half-heard arguments, and some of the Diver's friends seem quietly worried in a way Rosemary can't yet interpret. One key moment is an ugly incident at a bar involving a fight and a shooting. The scene pierces the bubble of elegance that surrounds the Divers and shows how thin that glamorous surface really is. Rosemary and Dick grow closer, and he lets the mask slip just enough for her to feel chosen. But he's constantly balancing on a moral edge. He wants her, but he's also married to a woman who feels psychologically fragile. Just when we think this will turn into a straightforward love triangle, Fitzgerald rewinds the whole story. Partway through the book, Fitzgerald jumps back several years to Zurich, where Dick and Nicole's story really begins. Here, Dick is not a glamorous party host. He's a young psychiatrist, ambitious and idealistic, working under the respected Dr. Daimler. He's on track to become a serious figure in psychiatric research and practice. One of the clinic's most difficult cases is a very young American woman named Nicole Warren. She's from an extremely wealthy family, but money hasn't protected her from trauma. She is a psychiatric patient, suffering from severe mental illness rooted in something horrific: childhood sexual abuse by her father. Nicole writes letters to Dick, mixing love, confusion, fear, and dependence. She clings to him emotionally as the one stable, understanding figure in her world. At first, Dick tries to maintain professional distance, but he's flattered, moved, and gradually entangled. Nicole's older sister, baby Warren, recognizes that Dick might be the key to giving Nicole a somewhat functional life, and the Warren fortune can easily support him. Eventually, Dick crosses a profound ethical line. He allows the relationship to become romantic and then marries his patient. On the surface, it looks like a fairy tale. The brilliant young doctor rescues the fragile heiress. But underneath, the marriage is built on a mix of power imbalance, dependency, and money. Dick is both Nicole's doctor and her husband. He's supposed to heal her, but he also needs her fortune. For a while, things seem to work. Dick and Nicole travel. Her condition improves. They have children. Dick joins with a colleague, Franz Gregorovius, to open a small clinic in Switzerland. It looks like a life of meaningful work and comfortable stability. But the seeds of disaster are already planted. Nicole's illness never fully disappears. It fluctuates. Dick is constantly responsible for her stability. At the same time, his life is now funded by her wealthy family. He starts to shift from being a pure scientist and doctor into being a kind of manager of a rich, unstable household. Over the years, he slowly abandons his most ambitious professional dreams in favor of a life that revolves around Nicole and the social circle that money brings. As the years pass, Dick drinks more, works less, and drifts further from serious psychiatric work. He becomes the charming center of a glamorous social circle rather than the focused doctor he once was. Nicole grows more stable and experienced, but the marriage is still shaped by their old roles. He's the savior doctor, she's the fragile patient he rescued. Then Rosemary Hoyt reappears in his life. They meet again in Rome, and the spark between them is even stronger. This time, Dick is more worn down emotionally, professionally, and morally. Their attraction turns into a physical relationship. Instead of freeing Dick, it only complicates his guilt, his sense of responsibility to Nicole, and his already shaky identity. Around this time, Abe North spirals completely into self-destruction, constantly drunk and drifting. Dick sometimes tries to help him, but often just drinks with him, using Abe as a mirror for his own decline. One of the most crucial moments is a drunken confrontation with the police in Italy. Dick's outburst with the police leads to scandal and public humiliation. For a man who built his image on poise and control, this is devastating. Professionally, he's also slipping. His clinic in Switzerland starts to suffer as his drinking and unreliability increase. Colleagues like Franz can see that he's no longer the disciplined, brilliant partner they once trusted. The glamorous Riviera life that seemed so effortless at the beginning now looks more like a way of hiding from reality than living it. In the final part of the novel, the power dynamic in the diver marriage flips completely. Nicole, through years of treatment and experience, becomes more stable and more self-aware. She sees that Dick is no longer the flawless protector she once worshipped. Instead, he's an alcoholic, professionally stalled, and emotionally unreliable. Dick, meanwhile, is worn down. The compromises of marrying his patient, depending on her money, and sacrificing his own career finally catch up with him. He's become the one who needs managing. The Warren family, especially Baby, increasingly sees Dick as a liability. Money, reputation, and control over Nicole's future are all on the table. Dick loses ground in every area, emotionally, financially, professionally. The original power imbalance, where he was the strong doctor and Nicole the dependent patient, quietly reverses. Into this tension steps Tommy Barbin, an adventurous, rugged man who's been in their social circle for years. Tommy isn't a doctor or a savior. He doesn't treat Nicole as a patient. He treats her as a woman he loves. Gradually, Nicole moves her emotional center of gravity away from Dick and toward Tommy. Eventually, she makes the most decisive move of the novel. She leaves Dick and starts a new life with Tommy Barbin. It's a stunning reversal. The broken patient is now strong enough to walk away. The strong doctor is the one left behind. Dick drifts back to the United States, moving from one small town to another, taking minor medical jobs that never really stick. The brilliant young psychiatrist who once seemed destined for greatness, the man at the center of glamorous parties on the Riviera, ends his story in quiet, unremarkable obscurity. He doesn't go out in some grand, dramatic explosion. He just fades. So what is Tender is the Night really about? First, it's about the decay of glamour. The novel starts in sunshine, beaches, parties, film stars, perfect couples. But Fitzgerald slowly reveals the cracks. Violence, mental breakdowns, alcoholism, and quiet despair. He shows that glamour is often just a shiny coat of paint over deep structural damage. Second, it's about power, ethics, and dependence. Dick marries his patient. At first, that looks romantic. By the end, it looks deeply unethical. Their relationship starts with him holding all the authority. He's the doctor, she's the ill, rich girl. But money, time, and emotional wear flip that dynamic. The man who once held all the power ends up with none. Third, the book is about mental illness and trauma. Nicole's childhood abuse is the hidden engine behind much of the story. Fitzgerald doesn't offer easy answers. Nicole's recovery is messy, uneven, and tightly bound up with her social and financial world. Fourth, it's about wasted potential and self-destruction. Dick Diver doesn't collapse because of a single dramatic event. He erodes, little by little, through emotional compromise, alcohol, and continual avoidance of responsibility. That slow decline is part of what makes him such a haunting character. Finally, it's about the limits of love. Dick tries to heal Nicole with love and psychiatry. Nicole tries to hold on to Dick with devotion and dependence. In the end, neither can save the other. They outgrow the roles they built their relationship on, and by the time they realize it, the damage is too deep. Tender is the Night might not be as widely assigned in schools as The Great Gatsby, but it may be Fitzgerald's most emotionally raw and personal novel. It's about love and illness, power and dependence, and the way even the most dazzling lives can quietly fall apart. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments. Do you sympathize more with Dick or with Nicole? Do you think Dick was doomed from the moment he married his patient? Or could things have gone differently? If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and tell us which book you want us to cover next.